After his first love passed away, Winfred became mute. For 4 years of marriage, he remained cold and distant, never showing me any care or attention. But later, I overheard his friend teasing him. "Winfred, aren't you tired of pretending to be mute at home every day? You must be suffocating." And Winfred, who was supposed to be mute, replied in a cold, detached voice. "I'm not pretending to be mute. I just hate everything related to her." When I opened my eyes again, I had gone back to the time before his first love died. I pushed him toward his first love. But he trembled as he asked me, "Why are you pushing me towards someone else?" On Winfred's birthday, I prepared a gift for him. I cooked a feast, setting the table with all his favorite dishes. But after waiting for what felt like forever, he never showed up. The food grew cold. I asked one of his friends and found out Winfred was at Bar A. My heart sank, and I numbly got up to go find him. The private room in the bar was lively, filled with laughter and clinking glasses. A group of men and women, all Winfred's friends, were having a great time. Just as I was about to push the door open, I heard Winfred's best friend teasing him. "Winfred, aren't you tired of pretending to be mute at home every day? You must be suffocating." At that moment, my entire body turned cold. Someone else chimed in, "Yeah, Marina's too controlling. I wouldn't want to live with her either." "Winfred, how long are you going to keep up this act? It's been 4 years already." I had rushed here, worried about Winfred's health, afraid he'd drink too much and hurt himself. But hearing those words, my ears buzzed, and my legs went weak. I clenched my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my palms, just to keep myself from making a sound. Inside the room, Winfred, who was supposed to be mute, spoke in that cold, detached voice. "I'm not pretending to be mute. I just hate everything related to her." He let out a mocking laugh. "She's so stupid. She never noticed I'd been faking it for 4 years. Yeah, you recovered from the car accident after just a month, and Marina never even realized. If it weren't for Alani, you wouldn't have had to settle for Marina. Enough about Marina. It's Winfred's birthday today." Winfred's face darkened as he picked up his glass and downed it in one go. It was strange. Even from this distance, through the crack in the door, I could see his eyes were bloodshot. It was all so ridiculous. For 4 years, I truly believed Winfred had been so traumatized that he'd never speak again. But I didn't care about that. So what if he couldn't speak? I could still talk. So, every day, I'd chatter away in front of him, trying to make him laugh. I'd tell him about everything that happened during the day. I'd cook nutritious meals for him, hoping to keep him healthy. I hoped that one day, I'd find a place in his heart. 4 years. Even a stone should have warmed up by now. But there was one name I never dared to bring up. Alani. Winfred's first love, the true owner of this bar, and someone I could never compare to. I closed the door, and the voices inside were instantly cut off. I couldn't hear their mocking words anymore. My head spun. Someone behind me called out, "Ms. Marina." But I couldn't focus on that. I stumbled to the roadside, trembling as I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking. My vision blurred. I suddenly realized my blood sugar was dropping. I popped a candy into my mouth. Finally, I sent Winfred a message. "Let's get a divorce." My birthday gift to him was a divorce agreement. I didn't ask for anything, just the villa we'd lived in for 4 years. And in that moment, I finally realized something clearly: I could never compete with a dead person. Not in the past, and not in the future. Suddenly, a bright light blinded me. I saw a truck speeding toward me. Behind me, a familiar yet distant voice shouted my name. "Marina." When I opened my eyes again, I was back 5 years ago. Nothing had happened yet. Winfred's first love was still alive. Winfred and I weren't married. I was overwhelmed with joy. At this time, I had just graduated. Winfred's family was going through a crisis, and his first love had gone abroad. In my previous life, I had quit my promising job without hesitation to join Winfred's struggling company. He worked himself to the bone, and his irregular eating habits gave him severe stomach problems. Every day, I cooked him nutritious meals, trying to keep him healthy. At business dinners, to secure contracts from those greasy, overweight bosses. I often drank on his behalf, afraid his stomach couldn't handle it. I'd charm those bosses, making them laugh and sign the deals. Back then, Winfred might have been genuinely moved. When I was vomiting my guts out from drinking too much, he didn't look at me with disgust. Instead, he made me a hangover drink. After a long silence, he asked, "Marina, is it worth it?" Even drunk, I didn't forget how much I loved him. I smiled, my eyes curving into crescents. Of course it's worth it. I love Winfred more than anything. But that moment of gratitude couldn't withstand the test of time or his longing for his first love. Later, I realized he wasn't worth it. This time, I wouldn't quit my job for him. My phone rang. It was Winfred. He sounded tired as he asked, "Have you submitted your resignation yet?" I looked at the resignation letter in my hand. If I hadn't been reborn, I would have walked into the CEO's office and handed it in. Then, ignoring the CEO's pleas, I would have stubbornly joined Winfred's struggling startup. His first love would be robbed and murdered abroad, leaving Winfred broken and mute. In the end, I would have half forced, half convinced him to marry me. I smiled. "Winfred, I just texted your first love and explained your situation. She said she'd come back. From now on, let her be the one by your side." There was a long silence on the other end. He must have been frowning. He asked in a low voice, "What do you mean by that?" I spoke each word clearly. "What I mean is, whoever wants to quit can quit. I'm not giving up my job at a top 500 global company." "What?" He didn't get a chance to say more. I hung up. The heaviness in my chest lightened a little after saying that. Suddenly, a deep, familiar voice came from behind me. He asked with a smile, "You really like this job that much?" I turned around and met Turnan's gaze. There was a hint of a smile in the corner of his eyes. I remembered in my past life, many people had looked down on me and Winfred. But when I was drinking myself to the point of vomiting blood and still couldn't close a deal, it was Turnance who put in a good word for me. Only much later did I find out that the client had originally planned to work with him. But he suggested they sign the deal with me instead. In my past life, I never got the chance to thank him. I felt my eyes well up. "Thank you, Turnance, I'm not sure what you're thanking me for, but you're welcome." From the moment I met Winfred in college, I had always liked him. But back then, his love for Alani was the talk of the campus. In the end, though, they never ended up together. I thought I might have a chance. After graduation, I stayed close to Winfred. Every time his friends saw me, they'd tease, "Hey, it's Winfred's little shadow." Not as pretty as Alani, though. "Why don't you bring Alani next time?" They didn't treat me like a person. I was just a joke to them at their gatherings. When I got upset, Winfred would frown. "Don't overreact. They don't mean anything by it. Some people are great at everything, except when it comes to love, they lose all sense." I kept lowering my standards for him. But not this time. I continued working at Turnance's family company. I thought Winfred, with his pride, would never come looking for me again. But that very evening, as I was leaving work, a familiar car screeched to a halt in front of me, nearly hitting my leg. The window rolled down, revealing Winfred's cold, stern face. He frowned, his tone impatient. "Marina, what's going on with you? You said you'd quit, and now you're backing out? All that talk about liking me and wanting to help me at the company, was it all a lie?" I smiled brightly. "Yeah, it was all a lie. Why would I give up such a great job offer? Only someone with their head kicked in by you would follow you to start a business." Winfred was stunned, not understanding why I'd changed so much or what I was playing at. After a few seconds, he let out a mocking laugh. "Marina, playing hard to get doesn't suit you." Suddenly, a hand rested on my waist. A deep, calm voice came from above me. "When we get married, I hope you'll still think this is just playing hard to get." It was Turnance. Winfred didn't recognize him and glared. "Who are you?" I replied coolly, "Winfred, who are you to me? What right do you have to question me? Alani's coming back soon. Since you like her so much, I hope we can cleanly cut ties before she returns. I have no interest in being friends with someone I used to love." Maybe I'd used this tactic before when I was angry. Winfred didn't believe me. He scoffed. Marina, last time you said you were cutting ties, you came back to me in less than 3 days. Trying the same trick again? I bet you'll come crawling back to apologize in less than a week. I nodded. Alright, then wait and see. I returned to my peaceful life. Winfred, as I hoped, didn't bother me. I heard his first love, Alani, had returned, and he was the one who picked her up at the airport. Good. The tragedy from my past life didn't happen. Alani wouldn't die, and I wouldn't marry Winfred. A couple of days later, Turnant suddenly approached me. There's a banquet on Wednesday. Would you like to accompany me? 10 times your usual pay, paid daily. My eyes lit up, and I nodded eagerly. I'm the perfect person for this job. It's a piece of cake for me. A faint smile appeared in the corner of his eyes. At the banquet, I realized something was off. Every few steps, I ran into one of Winfred's friends. Luckily, Winfred's career hadn't taken off yet, so he wasn't mingling with them. As I was coming out of the restroom, I ran into Winfred. His eyes were cold, but there was a hint of triumph in his expression. It's only been 3 days, and you couldn't wait to come back and apologize? I gasped in mock surprise. Who's this rude waiter? His face turned as dark as a storm cloud. Then he noticed the expensive gown I was wearing and frowned. Is this why you didn't quit? For money? I gave him a look that said, what are you even talking about? Tell me, who's more attractive, you or money? Maybe he couldn't handle the fact that someone who had always chased after him was now ignoring him. Winfred said in a low voice, how long are you going to keep up this act? Alani's back, but if you want to return to my side, I'll overlook what you've done. All your assets combined couldn't cover a month of my salary. What makes you think I'd want to come back to you? Your audacity? Without the blinders of love, my IQ was finally back online. Winfred's eyes narrowed, and he grabbed my wrist, staring at me intensely. Don't make me angry, Marina. Winfred, did you know even dogs eat dog food now? He was confused. What are you talking about? What I mean is, if you have dog food, eat it. Don't go around eating other people's crap. It's unsanitary and stinks. Plus, it's not fair to Alani. I grinned, my smile bright and bold. No more of the timid, cautious demeanor I used to have around him. And besides, if I were going to date anyone, it'd be a handsome man. Tell me, what part of you even compares to my boss? I put one hand on my hip and delivered the whole speech, without pausing for breath. My wrist hurt a little. But the pain faded as I watched the confidence in Winfred's eyes crumble. Suddenly, a familiar, deep voice came from behind me, warm and amused. At least you have some taste. A hand firmly pulled mine away from Winfred's grip, gently rubbing the red marks on my wrist. Does it hurt? I looked up at Turnance in surprise, my defenses lowering. I nodded instinctively. He smirked, a cold glint in his eyes. If it hurts, hit him back. For every hit, I'll raise your salary by 10,000. I rolled up my sleeves, flexing my biceps like a primal gorilla. Yes, sir. Marina. Winfred's expression was grim. Turnance, on the other hand, looked completely at ease. Just as I was about to charge forward and start swinging, he grabbed my wrist and said with a laugh, I wasn't actually going to let you hit him. Somehow, a crowd had gathered, noticing the commotion. I spotted a few of Winfred's friends in the back, clearly not pleased with me. One of the men stepped forward and said, Mr. Turnance, let's keep the peace. There's no need to ruin relationships over a woman. I didn't say anything. After a long pause, Turnance still didn't speak. Everyone was staring at him. I looked up and heard him say, he's using gender to belittle you. With me here, why not use wealth to put him in his place? In my past life, I must have been kicked in the head by a donkey to quit my job for him. Mr. Turnance, there's no need for this. The man's gaze made me extremely uncomfortable. I suddenly remembered his character. In my past life, when I was with Winfred, this man often made inappropriate jokes about my body. When I got upset, he'd laugh and say, it's just a joke. Why are you so uptight? Winfred would text me, if you don't like it, just leave. This time, I deliberately smiled in front of his girlfriend and said, he has a hairy black mole on his left chest. I saw a bunch of his nude videos online recently. All eyes turned to me. How did I know such private details about him when he had a girlfriend? In my past life, during one of Winfred's friend gatherings, I'd overheard them talking about it. Plus, this man was unfaithful in his relationships. His girlfriend, standing beside him, turned pale and slapped him across the face. "You jerk." I glanced at the others in the crowd. "Oh, and you've been sneaking around with your friend's woman. And you've been secretly working with your friend's rival, costing him billions." They were stunned. How did this woman know so much? Afraid I'd say more, they quickly interjected, "Mr. Turnance, please, as a favor to us, can you stop her from saying any more?" Turnance smiled arrogantly. "My family controls most of the industries in this city. How much are your favors worth? Should I pay you with my credit card?" The room fell dead silent. Turnance really helped me this time. Not only did he help me counter Winfred, but he also helped me save face in front of Winfred's future friends. With Turnance around, Winfred's company probably won't be as successful as it was in the previous life. I was satisfied. After returning, I looked at Turnance and said, "I'll always remember your life-saving grace. In the next life." He cleared his throat, a faint blush spreading on his face. "Ahem, if you want to repay me with your body, it wouldn't be impossible." At the same time, I finished my sentence. "In the next life, I'll work like a donkey for you." He frowned, his face darkening. "Why not in this life?" I remained calm. "Because in this life, I'm lacking in virtue." After that last time, Winfred quieted down for a while. He still had some pride. I happily worked at the company. Turnance had once told me that with one slap, my salary would go up by 10,000. Though he didn't actually have me slap anyone, my salary did get raised. He said, "Consider it a reward for all the gossip you've been listening to." As expected, without my help, Winfred struggled. With my meddling and Turnance's involvement, many people in the capital were too afraid to work with Winfred. His business was just starting and was hit by multiple setbacks. His small company was teetering on the brink. And I had just heard that Alani had left him again. Winfred spiraled for a while and didn't contact me. But I received a call from Winfred's father. "Marina, why haven't you come around recently? We've been talking about you every day at home. Winfred's mother misses you so much, she can't even sleep properly. She's been sick these past few days, lying in bed, completely drained, and keeps calling your name in the middle of the night." The moment I answered the phone, my heart gave a slight jolt. In my previous life, the reason I stayed with Winfred was partly because of his parents. They were always so kind to me. Whenever Winfred ignored me, they'd take turns scolding him. Until, in the end, he became a mute from all the stress. And his parents couldn't bear to scold him anymore. I quietly clenched my fist, my eyes starting to water. I spoke softly, "I'll come visit you once I finish up these next few days." "Good." I could hear their joy on the other end, and I whispered, "Winfred isn't home, is he?" There was a pause on the other end. No. That little brat wouldn't dare come." "Marina, you just come. We'll always have your back." I let out a sigh of relief after hearing that. I didn't want to see Winfred. I didn't want any contact with him. But Winfred's parents had been so kind to me, and now his mother was sick. If I didn't go, it would seem like I was ungrateful. Recently, I had started considering starting my own business. When I was with Winfred, I learned a lot and was exposed to many things. I dare say my professional abilities are solid. I had also discussed it with Turnance beforehand, and he smiled. "Marina, from the very beginning, I knew your platform wouldn't just be limited to this." After wrapping up my work, I went to Winfred's house on Saturday. I almost forgot where they lived before Winfred became successful. I only remembered that later on, Winfred moved them into the biggest, most luxurious villa. I walked in, carrying many gifts. Winfred's dad smiled widely, teasing me. Everything seemed the same as in the previous life. They were still as warm and welcoming as always. After chatting for a bit, I helped Winfred's mother back to her room to rest. Her eyes were misty with tears. "You're so virtuous and kind-hearted. If only Winfred could marry you." I didn't respond. Virtuous isn't exactly a flattering term. After tidying up, I stood up, planning to say my goodbyes and head home. Suddenly, she grabbed my hand. Could you go into the room next to Winfred's and look for a necklace for me? I nodded, not noticing the flicker of guilt in her eyes. I entered that room and immediately saw the cabinet she was referring to. I rushed over and found the necklace. Just as I straightened up, I heard a sound behind me. I turned around quickly, but the door was tightly shut. My unease grew. Tentatively, I called out, "Could you help me open the door?" From outside, I heard her voice. "You and Winfred need to clear up your misunderstanding. Don't blame me, I just want you two to be happy together." My heart dropped, like it had fallen from a great height. The feeling of dread was overwhelming. Don't bother trying to escape. This room was renovated by Winfred's father. Ordinary people can't open it. In that moment, I didn't know what to feel. It was like I was trapped in an icy lake, my body sinking deeper. I pulled out my phone, but as expected, there was no signal. She wasn't sick. She had lured me here on purpose. They had probably set up this room long ago, knowing I would help them look for something. They had gone to great lengths to lock me in. When they didn't hear me, Winfred's dad spoke again. "Don't worry, we don't want to hurt you. Winfred will be back soon. You two can talk things through, all right?" There was no room for me to refuse. When Winfred came back, I was sitting in a chair inside the room, expressionless, staring at the door. I didn't move until I heard a noise outside. The door suddenly swung open, revealing Winfred's face. He rushed up and hugged me tightly, his breath coming in fast, uneven gasps. "You still care about me, don't you? They lied to you about my accident, and you came running to see me right away. If it were true, only you would be by my side." I allowed him to hold me, not moving. For a long time, he still didn't let go. I tugged at my lips and smiled bitterly. "Are you shameless?" He froze. "Good horses don't return to old pastures, let alone one that's rotten to the core. Your parents imprisoning me is illegal. Did you know that?" He opened his mouth but said nothing. I was certain. "You know, and you also know that your parents lied to me, making me think you were sick. But you pretended not to know. I shouldn't have any illusions about your parents. You're all the same, rotten." His body was tense, his breath cold and sharp. He grabbed my chin, forcing me to look up at him. "Marina, don't keep testing my limits. Didn't you used to love me the most? Back then, I didn't understand and let you down. But now I do. What I like isn't the idealized Alani, it's you, the one who's been by my side. Let's start over, okay? I know that last time, Turnance pretended to be your boyfriend. If this had been the previous life, before I signed the divorce papers, hearing this would have made me feel moved beyond words. But some words, after the right moment has passed, are just empty. I threw back at him a line he'd once said to me. "Winfred, wake up. Alani is such a good girl, and you let her go. How useless are you?" Winfred's voice was hoarse. "She's great, but I only like you. She doesn't understand me, thinks I'm not trying hard enough, and always compares me to other self-made entrepreneurs, belittling me. He didn't really love me. His first love was like the moon, high up and unattainable. People always obsess over what they can't have. Now, Alani was back, just like I was back then, standing by Winfred's side as he built his business empire. They had a happy time together, just like an ordinary couple. Alani was more supportive, offering words of encouragement. She liked motivating him. "You should look into other entrepreneurs' journeys and see if you can learn from them. After all, you studied finance, so starting a business shouldn't be too hard for you." I, on the other hand, was much gentler. I'm not naturally like that. I'm more impatient. Love made me change, but now I was clear-headed and smiled at him. "Isn't she right? Winfred, no one love you, but someone love me, okay?" Winfred's eyes reddened, and he could hardly speak. In this life, without my help, Turnance's biggest order might not have been given to him at all. That order was the key to his success back then. But once it's gone, it's gone. No matter what you do, it's useless. He angrily slammed the door and left. He only left one sentence behind: "Marina, I hope you can wake up." I don't usually socialize much. These days, Turnance is the person I've had the most contact with. But he's the company's CEO. Tomorrow is Sunday. Maybe no one will even notice I'm not around. I curled up in the chair, quietly staring at the tiny window on the wall, catching a glimpse of the moonlight outside. A soft sound broke my train of thought. I paused for a moment, and then I heard a familiar voice above me. You didn't even react to the sound, are you that slow? I looked up and saw a figure that shouldn't have been there. Turnance opened the window, poked his head inside, his gaze half smiling, half mocking, a little comical. But I could sense he was angry. Mr. Turnance, what are you doing here? He shot back, if I didn't come, who knows how long you'd be stuck here, wasting time. Damn capitalist. 1 second, 2 seconds, a while passed in silence. We just stared at each other without a word. I suddenly asked. Did you call the police? He raised an eyebrow. You actually want to call the police on them? Of course. They imprisoned me, restricted my freedom, why wouldn't I call the police? Turnance muttered to himself, I thought you liked Winfred so much, you wouldn't even report him. What? Nothing. I really couldn't imagine how Turnance managed to stay so calmly by that tiny window for so long. I quickly urged him to call the police. He hesitated, should I really go? Yes, I urged. But after a long time, he still hadn't moved. I looked at him, confused. He pressed his lips tightly together, then suddenly became unusually serious. I'm afraid if I leave, you'll be scared. I was puzzled, scared of what? He looked away, aren't you afraid of the dark? How do you know? I am afraid of the dark. But after spending so much time with Winfred in the past life, he used to tell me, what's there to be scared of? Can you stop being so dramatic? So I forced myself to stop being afraid. Eventually, it didn't seem so scary anymore. I stared at him intently, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. It seemed Winfred heard a noise inside. When he opened the door, Turnance had already left the window. The window, high above, was back to its original state, with the moonlight shining through. Winfred sighed in relief, are you hungry? I didn't respond to him. I was waiting for Turnance, he said he would take me out safely. When the police car arrived, they were all stunned. The signal was jammed, so I couldn't call anyone or contact the outside world. Winfred must have thought of something, as he suddenly turned around and saw Turnance walking quickly toward me and pulling me into his arms. I stared at him, then softly asked, Turnance, did you know me before? He knew I was afraid of the dark, and in my previous life, he gave me the project. When he couldn't get in touch with me, he found Winfred's side. It was hard not to be suspicious. He froze for a moment, his face growing even more silent and stern. I was planning to wait until I died and put a QR code on my tombstone, so you could scan it and see what you had forgotten. But you found out ahead of time, which is really annoying. But that doesn't look like annoyance to me. It just seems like he doesn't want to talk about the past. Winfred ran off, and the police couldn't find him. Turnance was worried about me and started personally sending me home every day. He wouldn't leave until he saw my lights on. For the next few days, everything was peaceful. I furrowed my brow, wondering why Winfred had to run away. This would only make things worse for him. His company wasn't very large, but they had invested a lot. Almost all the remaining money in their family was sunk into his projects. Not long ago, there was a bidding event. I came into contact with it while working, and Turnance seemed to be planning to participate too. For some reason, the Shin family didn't succeed in the bidding last time, and instead, Winfred and I ended up benefiting from it. Now, his company was in chaos, with no one in charge, and everything was falling apart. My heart felt more complicated. Seeing the company I worked so hard to build in my past life become like this now, I felt a little lost and upset. Turnance knew before me. He was the one who called me to the office and told me. He raised his eyelids, lazily glancing at me. Marina, how could you ever think a man like that was worth your time? I shrugged, I don't know, but if you want him, you can have him. He gritted his teeth and suddenly laughed angrily. I don't want my future kids to have a criminal record. I know the world's top ophthalmologist, I'll send you to get your eyes checked for free. How can you not see a good man right in front of you? Liking Winfred had left me shrinking back like someone with a criminal record. These past few days, I've been so busy, I barely had time to think, and Winfred hasn't shown up. Soon, I won't have to work for anyone else anymore. I won't have to live for someone else. I have the ability, so why should I work for others? Shinchingli was very supportive of my decision. He said, if a company is afraid of employees who are too capable, scared they might leave to start their own business, then that company won't last long. The night lights were dim. Turnance dropped me off at the gate of my neighborhood, and I asked him to park. During this time, the security guards thought he was my boyfriend. I didn't want to cause any misunderstandings. Turnance said in a soft voice, okay, I'm afraid I'll keep you from finding a boyfriend. I gritted my teeth and walked into the neighborhood alone. When I got near my home, I suddenly remembered that the light by the door was broken. I felt a little uneasy. As soon as I stepped into the stairwell, a hand reached out from the darkness toward me. Before I could react, I was already pulled into the stairwell. Another hand covered my mouth tightly, and I couldn't make a sound. In the mix of our breaths, I could hear the person's rapid heartbeat. In my past life, I was so familiar with Winfred. It didn't take long for me to guess it was him. But he was clearly still on the run. Winfred. He slowly released his hand from my mouth, his breathing heavy, his heart racing. His eyes were as dark as a deep pool, staring into mine. I tried to stay calm. Winfred, don't do anything foolish. His voice trembled, like a lost child, full of confusion and helplessness. I think I've already made a mistake. What should I do? Was he talking about giving up on Alani, or about teaming up with his parents to lock me up? He slowly took my hand, and I could feel his palm sweaty and trembling. In the dark, I noticed his eyes were a bit red. He trembled. Why did you push me to someone else? Don't you like me anymore? My mind went blank, and I clenched my palm to keep calm. He spoke slowly. I've been dreaming about you a lot lately. At this point, Winfred probably hadn't had feelings for me yet. He continued, in the dreams, I'm fully aware that it's you, and me, but the scenes have never happened before. I thought about how to escape the conversation and casually replied, like what? I dreamt that Alani didn't go back to her country but instead died overseas. I pretended to be mute, and later, you insisted on marrying me. I even dreamed that you stayed by my side, helping me fight for success. You even drank with some people until your stomach started bleeding, just to get me a contract. I slowly lifted my gaze to look at him, almost in disbelief. These were all things that had happened in the previous life. How could he dream about them? I remained calm and said, if that's what you're trying to tell me, then you've got the wrong person. He grabbed my arm, his eyes trembling, his whole body exuding a broken sense of helplessness. You've been reborn too, haven't you? I asked flatly, Winfred, are you out of your mind? When the words left my mouth, he truly did seem like he was losing his mind. I went crazy when I found out you liked Turnance, but pushed me toward Alani. He lowered his head, kissed me roughly on the lips. I struggled to turn my face away, and he only managed to kiss my cheek. A sudden punch landed. I only felt the force of a fist cutting through the air, not even seeing who threw it. Winfred collapsed to the ground, his eyes still locked on me. He endured the pain, trembling as he pleaded with me, Marina, don't leave me, please. I turned my gaze away and looked at Turnance. I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around his waist. I could feel him stiffen, uncomfortable. I lowered my voice, what are you doing here? He replied, you didn't reply to my messages, so I got worried and came to check on you. I sighed in relief. Winfred was taken into custody. Although he was an accomplice in illegally imprisoning someone, he was the main culprit and even tried to escape law enforcement, which made his sentence even worse. He wanted to see me, and I went to see him. He had shaved his head, no longer looking glorious. His eyes were full of decadence and guilt. Marina, the person I've wronged the most in my life is you. I'm sorry for how I treated you in the past life. If I had remembered everything sooner and treated you better, would things have turned out differently? I interrupted him. My eyes fixed on him, my expression neutral as I said softly, no, once I decided to divorce you, I had no intention of liking you. His eyes dimmed, his entire posture seemed hunched and frail. The one you should feel most sorry for is the company you built with your own hands. Because that had once been our shared effort. I stopped focusing on Winfred. He had truly faded from my life. Turnance took me to many gatherings. I had planned to decline, but he raised an eyebrow and said, don't you want to start your own business? How are you going to do that without understanding the industry? I already understood. I muttered to myself, but didn't dare to speak it aloud. As the dinner was ending, I stepped out to pay the bill. When I returned, I overheard them discussing me. "Turnance, you like this girl so much, why don't you let her be your secretary?" People in their positions often liked to pull the ones they fancied into their offices to be personal assistants. Turnance raised an eyebrow, his voice indulgent. "She has her own talents. Why would I want to keep her by my side? What I can do is give her a platform to show what she can do, and that's enough." They exchanged glances and chuckled awkwardly. Most people didn't think much of it, brushing it off as just a woman. Years later, it was indeed this woman who built a leading company in women's products. When they saw me making money, they got envious and came to me for advice on how to make money. I smiled and said, "If you want to earn money from women, first learn to respect women." But that was a story for later. I stood outside, clutching the hem of my clothes. When we left, Turnance followed his usual routine and drove me home. But I didn't get out of the car. I turned to look at him with intense eyes. "Turnance, you mentioned we've met before. Can you tell me more about that?" His lashes fluttered. "You won't want to know. You're not me, how do you know what I want to know?" Finally, he spoke. His path to entrepreneurship hadn't been smooth. After his business failed, he didn't even have $5 in his pocket. He sat outside a convenience store, staring at the sky. I had come out of the store, mistaken him for a homeless man, and bought him some food and drinks. It was nothing to me, and I barely remembered it. But it was something he'd kept in his mind. When he later saw me with Winfred, he decided to give me special treatment. I pursed my lips. "Why didn't you say anything from the start? You didn't want to mention it because you didn't want to relive the hardships of starting your business?" I could understand that. He shook his head, looking away. "I don't think that time in my life was a stain. It's just, I wanted to always be seen as the strong one in your eyes." I placed both hands on his face, turned his head to face me, and slowly hugged him. Who's always strong? No one is forever strong, and no one is always weak. If it weren't for the you from back then, we wouldn't have the you now. You succeeded in your business, and that's really impressive. Really? I nodded vigorously. Really, I think you're handsome and cool. He pondered for a long time, meeting my gaze, and his mouth curled up like a little hook, his voice, smooth and teasing. "Consider making me permanent, okay? I'm a good deal, you'll never lose." A smile spread across my eyes. "I guess I'll reluctantly accept. There are always people who show up when I'm wounded and heartbroken. Ensuring I don't lose the chance to love and be loved." The end.